Welcome, everybody. It's Carol from the team at CJG Wellness, where we help you to live life to the full. We're here again for our monthly chat. And today, I'm excited to say that we've got Dr. Stephen Brooke back again, talking about the heart. And this month, he's talking about your heart and your DNA, a fascinating subject. Well, we'll have to see what he has to say about it. So from now, I'll hand over to Dr. Stephen. It's great to have you again. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome, Dr. Stephen Brooke.
Thank you very much, Carol. I am just going to go through the process of sharing my screen now so you can see my PowerPoint presentation, and I hope that's showing clearly. So welcome to you all from Dr. Stephen Brooke. I very much enjoyed delivering the seminar a few months ago. I think it was last December.
That's right, yeah.
Showing how you can use your heart for great benefit for your mind in particular. And today I'm going to build on that foundation. I'm going to show some of the same slides as last time that may look familiar, but I'm going to focus especially on the mechanism of how our heart rhythms have an effect on the DNA inside the cells of our body. That may be an interesting or unfamiliar thought to many of us, but it's something that I have found very fascinating to look at and to discover, and I'd like to share it with you today. So you see my logo there, which is a heart and a brain and a gut. And it is a fact that we have a number of brains inside our body, apart from the one in our head, and the heart in particular has a very important brain or mind of its own. So the theme today, the heart and DNA, and here's a rather nice little cartoon which represents the DNA and the heart offering some love to the DNA perhaps, or receiving some love from the heart. We shall see. What is the connection? And just to remind you, I'm a retired GP with training also in coaching and counselling, and in a particular form of helping people called HeartMath, which focuses on helping people to connect with the intelligence of their heart. How relevant is this session to you? Well, it's potentially, depending on how well you profit from it and do the exercises that I suggest and introduce, good for your well-being, good for your mental health. It can help to connect your heart and your DNA, and going to give you some tools to start using straight away. And 4 or 5 times during this presentation, we're going to pause and give you the chance to do some breathing exercises, which are the ones that we talked about last time in December. Now, let's start off with doing that, because I'd like all of you to get in touch with the wisdom of your heart several times during this session. It's not just theory, it's an opportunity to get involved. So I want you just to recall a feeling of an appreciation that you have for someone you love, or a pet, or a special place, or something you've accomplished. And remember the feeling of appreciation, or gratitude, or love, or focus on a feeling of calm or ease. And I'm going to give you a moment just to consider what you would like to appreciate, or who you'd like to appreciate, because we're going to spend a few moments appreciating. And this is what we call the quick coherence technique. And it's got 3 steps. Number 1, heart focus. So focus your attention in the area of your heart. That's not difficult, and it's even easier if you put your hand, your right hand, over your left side of your chest to give yourself a physical connection with your heart. And it's good if you sit yourself comfortably with both feet in contact with the ground, bearing the weight between them, and be aware that you're sitting comfortably. So focus your attention in the area of the heart, in the middle of your chest. Second step is to slow down your breathing and make it a bit deeper. And most of us, most of the time, breathe in a very unhealthy way, which is sadly too fast and too shallow. So just allow our breathing to slow down. I'm going to slow down my speech in order to suggest that to you, and adopt a healthy rhythm of breathing in to the count of about 5 and breathing out to the count of about 5. So it's in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out, 2, 3, 5. And as you do that, allow your attention to be in the area of your chest, the middle of your chest where your heart is. And just notice that comfortable feeling of breath coming in and out, slowly and easily and without any effort. And the third step in this quick coherence technique is to activate that feeling of appreciation that you identified a few moments ago for a person or a pet or a thing or an event or an accomplishment. So let's just take a few breaths, breathing in and out slowly, enjoying that feeling of breath coming into the chest while we're recalling someone or something special. That's good. And if it's not easy, don't worry, we'll do it several times during the next hour, and it hopefully will become more familiar and more effortless. So heart focus, heart breathing, and heart feeling, especially appreciation or love. Now, I want to remind us something about our hearts. And I'm going to talk about a few features of the hearts. Our hearts have brains, our hearts have rhythms, and our hearts have an influence. And I'm going to go on to talk about the geometry of our heart and how it corresponds to the geometry of our DNA. And I think you may find that very interesting. And then we're going to talk about how the benefits of the kind of breathing we've been talking about can start to accrue in our lives. So what is our heart? Well, the physical heart is actually a hydraulic ram made of muscle, takes blood and shoots it through in a very well-regulated way, and actually sends out pulses of blood in a vortex, particular shape, particular rhythm. Our heart has a powerful influence on the whole body. It also has a brain, or intelligence, which involves noticing things, processing things, and putting things out. Our heart can perceive, and we all know this. We all know that some things we notice with our heart rather than with our head. Well, when I say we all do, I should say we all can, but a lot of us maybe have stopped listening and noticing with our heart. Our heart is able to communicate. It remembers things. It has deep beliefs, and it gives us a sense of identity. And the way our heart has an influence is through the blood circulation, which is obvious, through the blood pressure, which is constantly changing and has physical effects on the body. Also through sending hormones through the bloodstream, and in fact, heart cells create some of the hormones that go through our system. It also has a conversation with the head, with the brain and the head, through a series of nerves which work in both directions. And it creates an electromagnetic field which has a powerful effect on the rest of the body, every part. Now, I mentioned that our hearts have memories. They house our long-term memories and our values and our sense of self. The gut also has some somewhat similar abilities. I haven't got the time today to go into all the detail about these things, but these are well validated in the medical literature. The heart is also concerned with our sense of boundaries, what's us and what isn't. It keeps a record of our emotions and the effects of our emotions. So, having said all that, our physical heart is a great deal more than just a lump of muscle that is beating and sometimes causing us trouble. Actually, it's designed to give us a lot of help. I want to say three things that the heart has. It has a brain, it has rhythm, and it has influence. So the heart has a brain. Here's a diagram of the back of the heart showing that there are 5 regions in particular which have bundles of nerve cells mixed together, joined together, called ganglia. And together it becomes a nervous structure called the cardiac plexus, which is a network of nerves that receive information, that transmit information, communicate with each other, and especially with the brain. So the heart has a brain. The heart has this set of nerves, much smaller than the brain in the head, but nevertheless very real, very active, very important. And in fact, the brain in the heart sends more messages to the brain in the head than the other way round. And it is an art in the business of life to learn to get your head and your heart talking to each other, appreciating each other, learning from each other, working together. So that's the fact that our heart has a brain, has a mind, has an intelligence. And if we refer to various areas of knowledge in the Bible, which refers to the heart almost 1,000 times, refers to our heart stirring, singing, speaking, rejoicing, meditating, desiring, trusting, and obeying. And it's more than just a metaphor for us. And that's something that I have learned through my studies in the HeartMath Institute literature and so on, that there is something physical, spiritual, and mental about our heart and the region of our body which contains the heart. Science shows us those things I've just been mentioning about the, should we say, the intellectual faculties of our heart. And there's something called emotional intelligence, which is different from the IQ that we perhaps know about, the sort of intelligence of a person. There is an emotional intelligence, which is about dealing with our feelings and the feelings of other people in a mature way, which is very much connected with our heart. So we have the opportunity to develop the wisdom of our heart and to learn to listen to our heart. Let's do that exercise once again. There's a bit of theory I've just been saying. Let's just do another practice. So allow yourself to sit comfortably, focus your attention in the area of your heart, and slow down your breathing to about 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out. So breathing in and out. And this time, as last time, as we maintain that slow, heart-focused breathing, think of someone or something you deeply appreciate. Maybe your loved one, something in the room around you that you really enjoy having or interacting with, just whatever it is, or maybe the same thing that you thought about a few minutes ago. Let's focus our attention on that thing or person that we love or like or appreciate. Slow, heart-focused breathing. And as we breathe in, we could focus on that sense of receiving love into the heart. And as we breathe out, we could focus on sending appreciation for that thing or person. Again, if that's not too easy, then just focus on slow, heart-focused breathing. Even that will do you the power of good. Slowing down our breathing, focusing on the breathing, actually is very good for us anyway, even if that's the only thing we're doing. Because it's delivering better oxygen, it's putting our focus in something which is not stressful, and it is calming us down. So let's move on to the second thing that the heart has. We said the heart has a brain. Your heart has a rhythm. And from moment to moment, our heart beats at a certain speed, at a certain rate. And on this graph, which has time along the horizontal axis and has the heart rate or the pulse rate on the vertical axis, you can see that if a person is feeling frustrated, then the speed of their heart is quite random. You can see that it's around 70 beats a minute, sometimes down to 60, sometimes as far up as 90, but it's around 70 to 80. And it's jerky, sometimes it suddenly increases, sometimes it suddenly decreases. Now, when this person shifted to heart-focused breathing, and were appreciating something while they were breathing slowly and focusing on their heart, the speed of their heart changed. That is to say, the pattern of their heart rate changed, and it became lining up with their breathing. So they're breathing in and out, in 5 seconds, out 5 seconds. As they were doing that, the heart was slowing down and speeding up, and slowing down and speeding up with that smooth pattern. And that is what we call a coherent heart rhythm. And when that happens, it has a beneficial effect on mind and body, which we'll talk about in more detail in a moment. Thirdly, your heart has an influence. And here we're coming closer to the connection with DNA. The science of interconnection, there's a bit of a small print on the right-hand side, but this is a graphic produced by the HeartMath Institute showing the heart, the brain, and the electromagnetic field of the heart. And the electromagnetic field produced by the heart is very much stronger than the one produced by the brain, by the head. Now, we said earlier that your heart communicates through the blood circulation, through blood pressure, through hormones, through nerves, and through electromagnetism. And because your heart is the strongest pulsating thing in your body, biggest, heaviest, pulsates more strongly, it actually, what we call, entrains other parts of you. So the beat of the heart tends to pull other rhythms in the body into sync with it, which is good if your heart has a healthy rhythm. Another fact is that your electromagnetic field, which looks like this donut around you, interacts with the fields of other people. And a wonderful truth is that when your heart is in a coherent rhythm, coherent state, because of heart focus, heart emotion, and heart breathing, you have a good influence on other people. They can sense something positive. Might not be conscious of it, might be an atmosphere, might be quite strong, but that's rather lovely that you can have a beneficial effect on other people and on their mood and their spirit when you are maintaining this beneficial, coherent heart field yourself. So here we have a diagram. It's very much schematic because the shape of the field is not exactly like that. It's distorted in various ways. But broadly speaking, that's the shape of it and the way that our energetic fields interact with others. Now, I'm going to talk briefly about intentions that we have. You can see a reminder here of the state that we might be in according to whether we are feeling frustration or feeling appreciation. In our mind or head, we may generate thoughts and intentions. For example, the intention to be kind to someone or love someone. When that happens, our heart is producing what we call biofields, which we can make coherent by focusing on emotions like love, appreciation, and care. So the electric fields around us carry this rhythm, this pattern, this shape of the emotions that we are cultivating and focusing on in our heart. These intentions are expressed in these fields that come from the heart. So this is a clue. There's a big influence coming out from us, from you and me right now, according to the mood that we are enjoying or perhaps choosing to be in. What about sending love to someone? That might sound like a very obscure idea. Let's have a look. Focus your attention in the area of your heart. Slow down your breathing. So this is I think it's the third time we've done this exercise. You're probably becoming familiar with it now. The heart feeling, this time, think of someone that you love, someone you'd like to send love to. Even if that sounds weird, just imagine that it's possible that you could send love to someone. Think of someone who you would love to have a good impact on right now, someone who perhaps needs your support, someone who's suffering from some illness or whatever. Now, as you're doing the slow heart-focused breathing, breathe in a sense of love or being loved. And as you breathe out, imagine you're sending love to that loved person. Now, the extraordinary thing about this is that the HeartMath Institute have actually demonstrated that when we do this, when we get into that state of coherence, when we imagine sending what you could call blessing or benefit or kindness to another person, however far away they are, actually there is a connection, there is an impact, there is a consequence. And here we're talking about the realm of spirit, which is not restricted by space and time. Quantum physics shows us that everything is interconnected instantaneously, faster than the speed of light. And this is a wonderful reality, maybe unfamiliar to some of us, that we can actually have an influence on other people in this way. And of course, if someone is close to us, that tends to make the benefit greater. Now, I want to start talking now about the geometry of the heart and the DNA, because this is one of the links between the heart and our DNA. And there is a similarity in their geometry. Now, there's a diagram there showing the DNA, which is like a ladder, like a twisted ladder, DNA inside each one of your cells. It's like a very, very long twisted ladder that's coiled up. And the artist has put the form of a heart at the top of it. Now, when we're in a state of loving and appreciation, the biofield around us becomes stronger. And here's another concept. The frequencies of our heart, the the wavelength and the frequencies of the vibrations of these electromagnetic fields, when we're in a state of love, receiving love, sending love, feeling loving, it's very interesting that the computer analysis shows that the frequencies which are being emphasized in the vibrations are in a particular ratio with one another. And they're in the golden ratio. In a moment, I'm going to tell you what we mean by the golden ratio. The second thing about geometry I want to tell you is that the structure of our heart muscle and the structure of DNA are both double spirals. So a ladder, a twisted ladder, is a double spiral. Each side of the ladder is a spiral. It's connected by steps to the other side. Here's a diagram of the muscle of the heart. And there's the top part of the heart called the atria and the bottom part called the ventricles. And there's a strip of muscle which constitutes these, which is actually wrapped into the form of a double helix, a double spiral. Then if we look at our DNA, which is inside every cell, except for mature red blood cells, without going into too much detail, there's a proportion in it, which is the golden ratio, proportion between the width and the length of each complete coil, and between the width of what's called the minor groove and the major groove. Won't go into too much detail. So our DNA is a complex information system inside every cell. It's a double helix, and because it's vibrating and it's a coiled coil, it generates an electromagnetic field. And the structure of DNA is based on the golden ratio. Now, let's talk about the golden ratio. If you have ever seen a seashell, certain kinds of seashells have this wonderful spiral shape, which is illustrated mathematically on the right here. This shape and this ratio is found all over the world. Now, if you look at that rectangle, you see there's a pink square, and then there's a buff-colored square. And if you start off with a complete rectangle and you remove the pink square, you end up with a rectangle again, which is exactly the same proportion as the first rectangle that you started with. And if you then remove another square from that, you end up with a smaller rectangle. And that's a way that you generate this curve. This ratio between these numbers, like 5 and 8, and 8 and 13, and 13 and 21, is found all over the world in nature. It's copied in architecture and art. It's regarded as the most beautiful proportion. If you think of your credit card, which is not beautiful, it's interestingly the shape of your credit card, and most books is in this golden ratio. It's foundational in mathematics, present in the human body, although I haven't got time to go into the detail of that. And it's present in the rhythms of the heart, and it's also present in the shape of the heart. Now, this may be a little bit too complicated, but just bear with me for a moment. This coherent state of love allows for a resonance between the fields that our heart is producing and the fields that the DNA is producing by its vibration. And the fact that there's this spiral structure in both the heart and the DNA means that they can correspond with vibration more easily. And what's interesting is that the golden ratio is present in the structure of the heart and in the frequencies of the heart when it's feeling love, and also with the structure of the DNA. The golden ratio, as I said before, when you're feeling loving and sending love, there's a computer demonstratable ratio of the frequencies which correspond to this golden ratio. Secondly, the electronic engineers know that this golden ratio is very efficient in sending energy down from a large wavelength to a small wavelength, which is very significant. And thirdly, the heart and the DNA both have the golden ratio in their geometrical structure. So I'm going to move on a little bit from that and say about the benefits of coherent heart rhythms. There are mental benefits. So if you carry on doing the exercises that I've been talking about regularly, research shows that it has a beneficial effect on your mind and on your body, and indeed on your spirit. The mental benefits of doing this regularly are better perception, better sense of well-being, better ability to make good decisions, better ability to solve problems and be creative and have what we call intuitive clarity. And here's something about mental health in particular: less depression, less anxiety, and less stress. And those are the three very common mental health issues in our society: depression, anxiety, and stress. There are also physical benefits for people who regularly do this heart-focused breathing, focusing on positive emotions. Actually benefits physical heart disease, diabetes, sleep, and helps the immune system and hormone balance. So a lot of benefits. And finally, there's lots of relationship benefits, because the science shows that people have more ability to communicate at a deep level when they're in this coherent state, when they're cultivating this rhythm of the heart, which involves slow breathing, heart focus, and love or appreciation or care or compassion or forgiveness. And it's been found in couples that communication improves. It's been found that therapists have more effective outcomes when they themselves enter this state of coherent heart rhythm. A little bit more about the DNA. We've been saying that our DNA responds to messages from our heart. And DNA is present in every one of our cells, with the exception of the red blood cells. When they mature, they lose their DNA. But apart from that, every one of the trillion cells in our body has DNA, which is vibrating and which is capable of responding to the frequencies that are being sent out from the heart. Our DNA is surrounded by water, which is not just a passive stuff, not just a passive liquid. We may know that water has wonderful properties, and indeed it does. The physicists and the chemists and the biologists among us know many wonderful features about water. But one particular feature it has the ability to store information. It surrounds DNA, and it stores information that comes from the DNA in the form of rhythms and frequencies. And our body is largely made up of water, as you well know, and our cells also. So water is a very crucial factor in what's going on here and in the DNA or around the DNA. Another interesting fact is that our DNA sends out light, which sends messages to the whole body. And scientists are discovering the importance of photons and patterns and rhythms of photons, which are the little light particles, that actually, to some extent, it can be said that we're made of light. So our DNA, as well as having the influence of the genetic side of things, also is very much involved in having an impact on the substance of our body through the water, and also sending messages in the form of light. Now, that might boggle the mind, and one could talk much more about the details of that. Very important, isn't it, to have a good effect, have a good influence on our DNA, which are in so many of our cells. Our DNA also produces proteins, which organize our life. In fact, that's probably the most well-known function of DNA. It produces something called RNA, which acts as a sort of go-between that then results in proteins being formed in our body, which are absolutely vital for our structure and our function. And all this can be influenced by the messages that we send to our DNA from our heart. There is something called epigenetics that you may have heard of. Genetics talks about the way that people can transmit information to their descendants, their progeny, their children. What's interesting is epigenetics is about the fact that our DNA has lots of capacities which may be dormant, which can be either switched on or switched off. And they can be switched on and off by our beliefs and by our environment. And there are a number of scientists who have explored epigenetics. One big consequence is that you're not stuck just with your genes, with your DNA, in the sense that, well, that's my DNA, I can't do anything about it. The fact is that by our attitudes and beliefs and by our lifestyle choices, we can have an influence on which bits of our DNA are creating which proteins. And that's really important, both for physical life and for mental life. A little bit more theory here before we do another practice. We have in our body lots of life energy or spiritual energy, a life force. And these life forces or energies are very much a part of our biological field, biological electromagnetic field, which, as I said to you, is largely being influenced by the emotions of our heart and the heartbeat. So we have the ability, by choosing our emotions and thoughts, to have a huge effect on our whole body. And if we have an intention in our mind that is being magnified by the rhythms of the heart, that's going to also have an effect on our biofield, and it's going to manifest as a physical change in the DNA as well as in other organs. And going into a little bit more detail, this effect on the DNA could be that the DNA changes in its structure, in its tightness of the coiling, or it could be in the way that the DNA reproduces itself, or it could be in the way the DNA has electrical properties. Those are all ways in which the change of frequencies and vibrations have an influence on DNA, and these can all be influenced by the field of our heart, which we ourselves are choosing to change the shape of. So in this way, our thoughts and intentions can be manifest in the body at the biochemical level, bringing about actual physiological changes associated with the healing process. And there's a reference there for those who want to follow it up. International Forum on New Science. Effects of conscious intention on human DNA. There's a huge amount more of research to be done, but it's exciting because the bottom line is that we're not just, how can I say, doomed or restricted by the physical sequence of our DNA. We can actually physically positively, intentionally interact with our DNA and influence which proteins it produces in our body. How can we increase the influence of our heart? Well, this ties in with what I've been saying. Our heart has the greatest positive impact when we have the heart focus, the heart breathing, and the heart emotion. And the emotions to cultivate are appreciation, love, and forgiveness, and compassion and care. That is positive care, not worry. And we can develop this ability with practice. Here's a reminder of the good effects of coherent heart rhythms on mental health. Increased positive outlook, increased sense of appreciation, motivation, calmness, and a sense of well-being. Those of us who practice HeartMath regularly can report that it's much easier to get into that sense of well-being with a few breaths, and the sense that things are okay, the sense that I appreciate something, the sense that I love something. It becomes more of a default state, and that is beneficial for our whole mind and body. Less fatigue, feelings of resentfulness, and stress symptoms. This is a very good stress management approach because it deals with mind and body at the same time, and I would say spirit at the same time. A few statistics that hundreds and thousands of people in scientific studies where their performance or their sensations or their behaviors were measured scientifically, huge percentage increases, for example, in sleep, reduction in anxiety, reduction in depression, using standard measures of severity, even help with anger management. And there's a seminal book called The HeartMath Solution, published in 1999 by Childry and Martin, which gives a huge amount of useful detail here. So let's have a final practice. Focus our attention in the area of the heart. Slow down our breathing. And this time, let's choose to focus on breathing in peace and calm. As we breathe in, just say to myself quietly, I'm breathing in peace and calm. And then as we breathe out, imagine sending that peace and calm to the DNA in all the cells of your body. Breathing in peace and calm. Sending it to the DNA in all the cells of the body. There's a little graphic here that reminds us that our heart amplifies good emotions. So choose an emotion like appreciation or love or a sense of compassion. Take it to your heart. In other words, slow the breathing, focus on the heart area, and breathe in, choosing to focus on that emotion of love or appreciation. I appreciate right now that I'm able to breathe in and out without any difficulty, for example. I appreciate that having done that, I can breathe out with no effort at all. And I can appreciate that by doing this, I'm increasing the delivery of oxygen. I'm increasing my well-being. I'm reducing my stress levels. So conclusion of today, I've talked about the heart and our heart rhythms. I've focused on the influence of our heart rhythms on our DNA, I could have chosen the head and given a similar parallel talk about how it affects the brain and brain processes. Or I could have focused on different parts of the body. But the interesting thing about the DNA, of course, it's present in every one, with certain exceptions, of our cells. And therefore, this is a universally beneficial practice. So the attitudes to cultivate: appreciation, love, forgiveness. And 3 special times to use this opportunity: when you're feeling stressed or challenged. And when I feel stressed or upset about something, I try to remember as soon as possible to do some heart-focused breathing. First of all, just to slow down. And secondly, to notice something that I do appreciate in the situation. And I take a few breaths of that, and I find that I'm feeling upset for a shorter time. We can also do this as a regular practice, and I try and do it whenever I think of my heart, whenever I move position or go to another room in the house or change activity. I try to tune in with my heart, take a few, even if it's only 1 or 2 deeper breaths, with a sense of appreciation. Good to do it when with other people also, maybe in difficult conversations, where we're forced to listen to someone who won't stop talking, perhaps. Good time to slow down our breathing. Focus on appreciation for the other person, perhaps, or focus on feelings of calm, or whatever is appropriate. And actually, if we focus on what we appreciate about the other person, we're more likely to listen with our heart to what they are saying, more likely to notice what they're really saying, more likely to notice maybe what they are trying to say but not succeeding with the right words. This is where perception of the heart comes in as a reality in relationships. And finally, if you want to make contact with me, that's my email address, Stephen.Brooke3@ntlworld.com. I'm retired, but I still do a few sessions with people. I don't charge a lot. It's become rather more informal and a word of mouth kind of network. But I enjoy doing it as a part-time activity. It's good for my heart, and it's good for everybody's heart. So thank you very much for listening to this. I will wrap up here. Don't forget the 3 stages of the good, helpful, coherent heart state: heart focus, heart breathing, and heart emotion. Have practice, enjoy, and let Carol or me know how you're getting on. Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen. That was fantastic. Yeah, very, very interesting. Very exciting, isn't it, to think that our DNA, we're not, as it were, stuck with it. We can actually change it. Yes, yeah, depending on what we think. Yeah, how important it is, our thoughts are. That's so true.
Yes.
Yes.
There's a book called Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton, which talks in detail about this epigenetics. He's a biologist, a scientist, a medical educator. And that's I find that a very helpful book, The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Yes, I've read that book. It's quite amazing, isn't it? How he brings it all together, and his own story as well, along with it. Very, very, very good book. Yeah. People could, if they contact you with the email that you've put there, can they actually have a session over Zoom?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. That's what I thought. So that would work for them as well. That's great. Yeah, thank you so much for that, and for the heart breathing. It's so good to practice that and to slow yourself down, and appreciate that what your heart does, and that it that you, as you say, just moving around, you can do it, can't you? And change the atmosphere, as it were, where you are. Amazing. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. It's goodbye from me. That's Carol, the team of CJG Wellness, where we help you live life to the full. Until next month, bye for now.